Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Wherever you are in the world, we'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Be More Agile with Real-Time Insights, brought to you by Episerver and CMSWire.com. I'll be your moderator today. I'm Tom Murphy, General Manager and Editorial Director for CMSWire and Simpler Media Group. I cover a lot of these areas we'll be talking about today, and I'm also the author of Web Rules, How the Internet is Changing the Way Consumers Make Choices. Here's a brief look at our agenda. We'll have a few introductions to start, then 35 minutes with Donna Pale and Joachim Holmquist, our two guests today, and then the part of the program I generally like the best, which features you, our audience, asking live Q&A to our guests. You can submit your questions at any time during the program. You can send them via WebEx or Twitter, or you can use the Q&A tab over on the right side of your screen. To use our chat function, you'll see a chat button at the top or the bottom of your right side of your screen. Click on that if your chat window is not already open. Then you write your message in the box on the bottom where that lower arrow is pointing and select the group to which you want to direct your question. Usually the panelist will be it for if you have a question, or our host if you're having a technical problem. We have a Q&A tab there too. This is a great place to put in your questions as they come up while you're watching the slides. Just direct those to all panelists and we'll take care of those. We'll have interactive polls during this program. It's election day in the US and we all want you to vote. So when you see a little window pop up on the right side with the polling question, I'll be reading it. You can choose your answer and don't forget to click that submit button on the lower right. That's very important. As soon as everybody has a chance to vote, we'll tally them and read the results right back to you. CMSWire was founded about 11 years ago. We have over 400 editorial contributors. We publish more than 200 articles a month. We follow editorial themes, but we cover a lot of areas. We have monthly tweet jams, hangouts, webinars like this one, and many other events. So please check us out if you don't already know CMSWire.com. Our primary coverage areas are customer experience, digital marketing, social business, enterprise collaboration, enterprise information management, and then there's a lot of subcategories that we won't go into today. Today's program is sponsored by Episerver, which connects e-commerce and digital marketing to help businesses create unique customer experiences. You can find out more about them at episerver.com. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our two guests today. Donna Pale is Director of Marketing and E-commerce Solutions. She has over 18 years experience as a practitioner and was formerly Director of Digital CRM for Giant Eagle. Joachim Holmquist is Digital Marketing Manager. As you can see, he's a vocal supporter of excruciatingly simple products and ideas. I'm a big fan of that myself, Joachim. We'll be looking forward to hearing both of them, but right now we're going to turn to Donna, and I will ask you to take it away, Donna.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Joachim and I are excited, as usual, to share our insights and have some dialogue with everyone today. Some food for thought. What are we going to talk about today? We thought we'd have some fun. If you'd like to banter with us a bit on social, we are going to go ahead and utilize the hashtag RIP best practices. And you'll understand what we mean by that in just a few minutes. You can see Joachim and I's handles there. We're going to talk about your new CMO. We're going to talk about why best practices are dead, how we can become more agile and overcome challenges. And then we're going to get to the nitty-gritty, and Joachim is going to share some of the day-to-day challenges and how we solve that from an Episerver perspective. So I want to give you a little bit of insight into my background so that you understand where my point of view is coming from. I've actually been a brand marketer for over 18 years. And before joining Episerver a little more than a year ago, I was actually an Episerver customer. So I have a very interesting point of view around that. I remain steeped in the customer's point of view. And I'm a diehard for it. I think that now more than ever, understanding who the connected customer is and what their expectations are, is an imperative in moving forward. Only brands that really embrace that and derive a go-to-market strategy from their customers' point of view will be able to thrive in the new world. So, if you will, meet your new CMO. And why am I saying that the connected customer is your new CMO or your chief marketing operative? Well, that's pretty simple because with a few taps of their thumbs or a click of their mouse, that new connected customer is broadcasting powerful messages about your brands, products, and services to their ever-growing social networks. And their voice is amplified and carries a lot more weight than anything we could ever say about ourselves as brands. They're either our biggest advocates or our biggest adversaries. Their expectations, along with all of the emerging technologies that are evolving at an unprecedented pace, provide us with both challenges and opportunities as marketers. How do we meet the needs of this new CMO? First, we've got to follow engage. We have to move at the pace of the connected customer. We have to unify the content and the commerce experience for them. We have to lean into an omni-channel stance, elevating our offering along that continuous path to purchase and remaining in their consideration set is what we need to do as marketers to the connected customer. Unifying the content and commerce experience for them helps us to decommoditize our offerings and cut away the noise for this customer and help them see a clear path to our particular products and services. So, Tom, we're going to go ahead and get some feedback from our audience. We're going to go ahead and do the first polling question at this time.
That's terrific, Donna. And I got to compliment you. I love those little cartoon pictures. I'm sure that's you in those slides.
It's the connected customer, which I'm one.
There you go. You're practicing what you preach. So our first polling question, it's a little bit long, but please stay with us. We do want everybody listening to vote on the right side of your screen. You should see the polling question there now. Which of the following is your organization's biggest challenge in keeping pace with the ever-changing expectations and needs of the connected customer? A, we do not yet have a grasp on who the connected customer is and what it means to our business. B, our current technologies inhibit our ability to move at a pace of the connected customer. C, our organization is too inwardly focused and needs to better understand the customer point of view. Or D, our internal organizational structure does not support our ability to understand and meet this customer's needs. So please choose from A, B, C, or D and click that submit button over on the right side of your screen. That's very important. I want everybody to vote. And Donna, while they're doing that, any guesses as to what we're going to see in the results?
I think we'll see, folks dealing with different challenges. A lot of companies today will say that they're customer focused or customer obsessed. And I think being really steeped in the customer's point of view is a slight twist of that concept, because when you're customer focused and customer obsessed, you're still taking the data and you're still outward looking in at the customer, and putting yourself in the customer's shoes is a little tweak to that go-to-market strategy methodology that makes a world of difference. So I'll be curious to see what everyone has to say here.
Well, the leading answer is C. Our organization is too inwardly focused and needs to better understand the customer point of view. I think that's something we could all do a little bit more of, but we have a couple of close answers too. B got 14% of the vote. Our current technologies inhibit our ability to move at the pace of the connected customer. And in third place was A. We do not yet have a grasp on who the connected customer is and what it means to our business. Interesting results, and I'm sure you'll address them in your coming remarks, Donna. I'll turn the controls back over to you.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for participating. So one of the things and this is a bit disruptive, we realize, but at the core, we do believe that best practices are dead. They're so yesterday, quite literally. And what do we mean by that? Context and relevancy are imperatives in today's world of the connected customer. We have to remember that today's connected customer is faced with virtually an infinite number of choices of not only what to buy, but when, where, and from whom they choose to buy it. So how will we help them along in their continuous journey and win them over? So best practices, this is a typical scenario. I'm not going to really walk through this, but I'll speak to it. If you remember the last big marketing conference that you went to, it was certainly full of folks that you wanted to hear from and that you wanted to share information with. There's nothing wrong with that. We all like to get with our peers and share what we know. But unfortunately, what happens with best practices is by the time someone actually runs a program, does the analysis, and derives the insights, this connected customer and the emerging technology set is moving at an unprecedented pace. And that information just won't hold true for any period of time. That's why we have to become more agile as marketers. The bottom line is this customer is constantly on the move. As technology emerges, their adoption rate of that is, there's no learning curve to it. They're just inherently becoming, and as we know, the younger customers coming into the fold are native. This is just part of who they are and the way they behave. So we have to make sure that we're referencing best practices in a way, but we cannot apply them one-to-one. And we certainly can't apply what worked 6 months ago to what we're trying to do today. So what do we mean by best practices being dead, and how are we comparing traditional marketing to agile marketing? First and foremost, we have to live from the customer's point of view. We've got to test and learn and get scrappy. And above and beyond all, let's have some fun while we're doing it. So we're going to walk through these. This is a list of the principles that we're going to introduce, and we'll walk through them in some detail. First of all, as you guys know, I'm a diehard for this one. Live from your customer's point of view. After all, it's really the only one that matters. You guys in the poll said that the biggest hurdle you have is that your organization is too inwardly focused. We're all guilty of that because we all are held to business measures. But inherently, when we have happy customers, our business goals are met. And this is just, as I mentioned, a slight tweak to our go-to-market strategy and making sure that we understand what the customer needs and when the customer needs it. Just like an agile software developer, the agile marketer knows what the target market needs now rather than what they needed 6 months ago and tailors the activity accordingly. It's a constant test and learn. As you deploy your go-to-market strategy, we have to monitor and utilize the data that we have available to us to derive insights, and then obviously we have to take action upon those. Principle 2, keep the big picture in sight. And this is a word of caution, if you will. Agile marketing in practice can be exhilarating. It's sort of the fly by the seat of your pants type of stuff. It's easy to get carried away with daring experiments and lose sight of what your brand is about and what you as marketers need to achieve for your organization. Having a set of clear objectives for your marketing and KPIs to track it makes it easy to tell when you've gone too far off course. But also having this test and learn methodology helps you keep pace with this customer because you're not, developing some long-term plan that you have to wait 6 months to launch. You're giving little bits of it, you're getting real-time feedback from your customers, and you're moving and adjusting your go-to-market strategy accordingly. Principle number 3, build a great MarkOps team. One of the hallmarks of an agile software team is continuous feedback loop across development and operations, a culture known as DevOps. A truly agile marketing team will have a similar collaborative approach, MarkOps, if you will, to identifying and solving problems. And this really empowers the whole team to not only be able to identify issues and challenges or what's working and share that across the team, it empowers the team to make decisions on the fly. You've got to be able to move at the pace of the customer, and the team has to be positioned to be empowered and make decisions in real time. So we all know digital provides us with a deluge of data, and it's easy to get inundated by all of that. So it's important that we prioritize the issues and not try to solve for every singular thing that comes into the pipeline. We've got to utilize the data in a really smart way because after all, data is just noise until we create insights. And then of course we have to take action from those insights. It's an imperative that we do that over and over and over again. And principle 5 is iteration. Don't hold steadfast to a long-term plan. Of course, we have to have a strategy and a roadmap, but it has to be a living, breathing document that the whole team is tuned into, and it's derived from the customer's point of view. We have to constantly iterate and realize that we're not striving for absolute perfection. It simply doesn't exist, and customers simply won't appreciate it. What customers appreciate is a marketer or a brand that's coming after them with personalized information when and where they need it and in the format that they need it. So one of the polling questions answers was around, is technology an inhibitor of your ability to move at the pace of the customer? As I mentioned, I was a practitioner, and quite honestly, at some point in the game, I stopped answering my phone because inevitably, every time I answered my phone, it was a technology provider telling me that they could solve all of my world's problems with their technology solution. And it's now important more than ever that we subscribe to technology solutions that are open, agile, and scalable, because quite honestly, none of us know what's coming 6 months from now. So we have to make sure that we're able to plug and play with the emerging technologies that our customers want to utilize, but that we have a strong foundation to do that upon. I would like to introduce you guys to Episerver. I don't know if you're familiar with us. At the core, we offer a unified content and commerce solution. It's open, agile, and scalable, and I came to know this as a customer. Technology is not a go-to-market strategy. Technology should empower your go-to-market strategy so that you can empower your connected customers. So if you would like to learn more about our technology, please reach out to us, and seeing is believing. We'd be more than happy to give you a demo of that. As we know, customers are utilizing, they're connected all the time. They're utilizing different technologies both in and out of store. And our ability to be able to interact with that customer when and where they choose and on the screens that they choose is an imperative. And we must be able to do that in real time. When we talk about effective exchanges, so the customer is on a continuous path to purchase. At any point in time, when the customer so chooses to engage our brands, there is DNA that must be inherent to have an effective exchange with that customer. And it's comprised of content, design, and function. The content is what is being delivered, what is the information that the customer needs. The design is, holding true, making sure our branding's intact, making sure that it's aesthetically pleasing. And then functionally, how are we delivering that information to the customer so that we make sure that it's digestible in a meaningful way? And then data, we all love data, and I've been guilty myself of getting into the analytics program and diving. But it's an imperative that we utilize the right data, that we're asking ourselves the right questions, and that the team's aligned on that. And that's been derived from the customer's point of view. We have to be able to leverage the data to derive insights and create an action list. And it's a constant iterative cycle that we have to adhere to. We have to move at the pace of the customer. So this is a LoomEscape diagram that basically shows all of the different marketing technologies that are available to us today. And as I mentioned, I quit answering my phone because these people were trying to call me every day. And it's not that they didn't have a good story to tell, but I needed to know what my customer was trying to do so that I could utilize technology to enable that exchange with them. And you're inevitably going to want to plug and play with some of these technologies because your customer is going to be utilizing them. So as I mentioned, you have to have a solid, open, agile base that you're able to plug and play over time and anticipate what we do not yet know yet is coming. And that's all a part of our marketing agility, is to have technology that is agile as well. So now Joachim is going to provide some of the nitty gritty, as I like to say. He is a practitioner in the day in life, and he has some great insights and tips and tricks to share with everyone. So Joachim, I'm going to pass the control over to you. And there you go. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the challenges that we see organizations facing when trying to adopt this more experimental marketing culture. And the first one that we see over and over again is really this hippo challenge. And all too often, marketing decisions are being based really on the opinion of the highest paid person in the room. And this type of hippo decision making is problematic for many reasons. But I think more than anything, because these individuals that are in this position tend to be quite far away from the action and really the real data about what customers want. And that makes it very, very difficult for someone in that position to predict these outcomes with any type of certainty. So I think that a good solution to this hippo problem is to acknowledge the fact that, well, good ideas are really going to exist in abundance. And they're not only going to come from the hippo, they're going to come from a lot of different people in your organization. And I quite like this quote that says that the best way to have a good idea is to have lots of ideas. And again, the only way to really find out what is a good idea beyond looking good at the whiteboard is really to try it out on real customers in the marketplace. That's when you're going to know. So a more concrete example here that we see in savvy organizations is that they're trying to embed experimentation into the process of content creation and content marketing. So in this case, essentially nudging the editor or the marketer to just provide a few variations of headlines before pushing out the content. And we all know that companies such as Upworthy has really built their entire business around this. And while this is probably not going to be the case for you, that just by changing headlines, you're going to change your business or change your marketing, I think that it's going to push you in the right direction of being experimental. And you will have small gains here. Because what happens when you start working in this way is that you go beyond the best practice and you start accumulating the real ideas of what's the type of wording, what's the type of tonality that really resonates with your specific visitors. A second problem that we see a lot is this notion of data. And there's just so much going on in this area. And a lot of it is very exciting stuff. But I think that the wealth of possibilities sometimes tend to paralyze us. And I think there is a quite acute need to simplify here. And we all sort of recognize this fellow that, we're looking at the grass and we think that it's a little bit greener on the other side. And we're opting to wait for everything to be connected, all our systems to be connected, so that we can do big data, so that we can connect the offline world with the online world, all of those exciting things. If you do have the bandwidth and the skill set, it's wonderful if you're able to execute on them. But it's very easy to get blinded and to forget about why we're really doing this and using it as excuses for not taking action right now. And I think that one way of looking at this is, okay, can we focus on what is arguably the biggest problems for our customers right now? If we can measure that, then I think it's okay to ignore the rest, at least for the time being. And if you can be so specific as to only focus on your biggest problems, well, then it's much easier to also make your data actionable. Because as Donna talked a little bit about, and as I'm going to talk about when I go through some examples from ourselves, we really feel like data is quite useless up until the point where you can derive action from it. And once again, a somewhat more concrete example that we see, and we see a lot of our customers starting to benefit from this. And it's this idea of bringing in analytical information into the context of when you're working with content. And I think this is a very, very exciting possibility, so that your CMO or your marketer for your organizations can set up the strategic goals, and then everybody that's working on content can get sort of real-time feedback. Okay, the content that I'm creating right now, is that contributing to the goals that we have for our site? Is it contributing to the page that I'm working on right now? Does it do good in comparison to other landing pages with forms on it? That type of immediate feedback for a marketer or an editor, I think, is really going to be invaluable, because it's also going to make people goal-oriented and make people iterative, so that they go back and they take a look at what they're doing and see how it measures up. And the third and sort of final challenge that I want to talk about before getting into some of our insights and sort of a plan for how you can start working in an agile fashion is this notion of being slow. And I think many would agree with me when I say that many companies today that were born in sort of the non-digital world, they're very much designed around the idea of being slow. Um, and for the very reasons that we just talked about, we have the highest paid person in the room making decisions, so we can't take decisions right away. Data is often not very actionable and sometimes not available to the people that really need it to make smart decisions. And maybe most importantly, I think that we sort of have this outdated idea of what is risk and the fear of failure. And many of us might agree that, okay, we need to be able to fail on the small scale to succeed in the long run. But I would say that still very few companies actually live and work that way. So how does one deal with this slowness problem? Well, it's a tricky problem and it has many different answers, but I think that one very sober realization that one can come to is that you really need to understand that the biggest risk here is doing nothing. And I think that we see that over and over again when we look at industries being disrupted. Uber is obviously a very good example for the transport business. By coming in and being more customer centric, really focusing on how can we make the life of people wanting to transport themselves easier, they have really made it difficult for the taxi business. I'm a huge fan of the app Hotel Tonight. I think they're doing a wonderful job in terms of the experience, and I prefer that app to going to the hotel directly and do business with them. So I think that once you understand, sort of present to you what I think is the framework that we can use when we drive action through this type of agile experimentation type of way. And the first thing that you sort of need to become clear upon is that many times perfection is really the enemy of action. If everything needs to be perfect from the beginning, you're probably not going to get started so quickly. You're going to find all sorts of excuses for not getting started. So what we propose, and what I think is a good way of thinking about this, is it's good to define where you need to be going. You need to do that. You need to find the state of awesome, if you so will. But it's equally important to carve out what is going to be your next target. What is that something that's going to move you in the direction of where you need to be, the state of awesome. Because otherwise, awesome is just going to seem too far away, and you're probably not going to get anywhere. So the first thing that you need to do here is to try to identify where your biggest problem is. And there are plenty of ways of doing this. I think that one way that it's simple is just to look at, okay, where do people engage with us the most, and what type of interactions have the highest value for your company? If you can do that, you're going to say, okay, maybe we need to focus a lot on the acquisition area to actually get people to be aware of us, or you need to focus on something a little further down the funnel, so making sure that people that come to you engage, or looking even further down at converting people or nurturing them, or even going into customer retention and customer care. I'm pretty sure that few of you are going to say that you are perfect in any of these areas, but you should be able to say which one is the most urgent problem? Which ones would make the lives of your customers and your prospective customers a lot easier than what it is today? So if you manage to do that, the second step that you need to take is to be very, very clear about what is the success criteria. Because if you don't know this, well, you're not going to know that whatever you undertake in terms of changes, is that moving you closer to your target, or is it moving you further away from your target? So here you need to be very, very crisp. And when we looked at this some time ago for ourselves, EpiServer, we came to the we sort of had the idea that we needed to improve engagement on our website. And a very good and simple measure of engagement is the bounce rate. And the bounce rate, as most of you know, is the amount of people that come to your site and they leave without a second interaction. So essentially, they vote with their feet, they can't find anything that's interesting, and they just leave right away. So in order for us to improve engagement, we said, okay, bounce rate is the metric that we need to focus on, bring that down, in order to feel like, okay, we've done a good job in engaging our audience better. And secondarily, we just wanted to keep an eye out for the second metric, that was conversion rate. It wasn't the primary metric here, but we wanted to make sure that if we do a change to our start page, it shouldn't bring down the conversion rate. We should see at least the same if we can work down the bounce rate, but hopefully a little bit higher. So if you've gotten that far, it's really about finding out, okay, what do we need to do? What is our hypothesis on how we can improve what is our problem, and then executing on that. And in our case, the basic premise was that, well, we thought we didn't do a very good job of communicating with our visitors that came in different stages. So we did a redesign. We spent 3 or 4 days coming up with a hypothesis and designing a new start page that really should cater better to people that were in different stages. And we call those stages see, think, and do. That really corresponds to people that are just browsing around and interested in digital marketing and e-commerce in general, the people that are actually thinking about perhaps considering a new vendor at some point, and last but not least, the people that are in the do stage, that are willing to evaluate different vendors and really looking to make a decision pretty soon. So we came up with that, and we ran a very simple A/B test between our original start page and our new start page. And what one can see is that we were relatively successful. We had statistically significant lower bounce rate, and we did see some improvements in conversion rates that we wanted to see moving in the right direction. This certainly does not take us to our sort of desired state of awesome. We're still some way away from that. But it did move us to our next target, which was really being under 40% in bounce rate. So once you've gotten this far, I think that it's worth drilling down a little bit further and trying to understand, okay, what went on here behind the curtains? Were there differences between how people reacted to this change in different geographical regions? Are people reacting very differently to different type of content that we have? And many times you're going to find that, and we in fact did for this experiment, that in different regions, people were more or less optimistic about this version. They engaged more or less depending if they were in the US or in the UK. And based on that, you can come up with a lot of neat ideas and new hypotheses for maybe how you need to work with personalization on geographical markets. So here is a lot of fertile soil in the results, if you dig a little deeper, that will really give you the next ideas on how you can move the needle next time around. And the fifth and sort of final step in this process is really to start over and speed up. It's going back to assessing, okay, are we still working on our engagement issue, or is something a little more important right now? Finding out what you're doing and then executing. And I think that maybe simplify it a little bit, but the companies that can speed up this cycle from doing one sprint to executing to evaluating are really going to be the ones that get to know their customers the most, and subsequently also being the most successful in the long run. So I'm going to move into a sort of caution here, but before I do that, I think I'm going to head over to Tom for our second poll of the day. Isn't that so, Tom?
I think it is. Let's see if we can just flip to the next slide here. And Joaquin,
Let me do that.
There we go. Poll number 2. How often do you run A/B or multivariate tests on your site, your content, or your campaigns? Now, be honest here, folks. We want you all to vote in the form on the right side of your screen. Point A is constantly. We test every element of everything we produce. B, we run regular tests on certain elements like landing pages and emails. C, we've run tests before, but sporadically and without specific focus. D, we don't run tests. Testing is for wussies. I don't know how those are going to go, but I do want everybody in our audience to vote. You just click one of those radio buttons there and then click the submit tag. At the same time, I'll remind you that you can ask questions of our guests. If you ask them now, we will answer them during our Q&A portion, which will start in just a few minutes. You can do that through the Q&A tab after you finish with your poll. Very quickly, Joachim, where do you think people are going to come in on this?
I'm not entirely sure. I would imagine that we're in between B and C. That's my guess.
Okay. Well, I'm going to lean towards B, but we'll see. Just waiting for the results to come in now, and they should be up any time. Unlike regular polling, you don't have to wait till the end of the day and watch it on TV tonight. We'll tell you the results right now. And here we go. The results are in. Well, C, we've run tests before, but sporadically and without specific focus. We've got a lot of honest folks here. 25% result there. We run regular tests on certain elements at 20%, and that's the two leading answers. I think I won't even go through the others. About half our audience didn't vote, so we have to limit the quality of those results there, I think. Okay, Joachim, I think it's time for you to wrap up your presentation. Why don't you take the mic?
All right, let's do it. So before I hand it over to Tom there for the poll, I sort of wanted to bring up a cautionary aspect of this, and I think that Donna sort of talked a little bit to that earlier. And I think it really comes down with the competitive nature of doing testing, that you get very excited very early on because you are going to see some good results if you get into experimentation. And what we see over and over again is that companies are very good at obsessing about the 2% give or take of visitors that are converting on their website. They're improving their landing pages. The call to actions are becoming better. The checkout is getting optimized. And there's all these incentives that is going after the sort of 2% that end up converting. And I think that's great to do. But we also need to keep in mind that the broad majority of folks that come to your website is probably not going to convert. So you also need to figure out how are you going to successfully meet these other 98%. And many times I would say that those are the folks that we really need to obsess about if we're going to become a sort of a customer-centric business that meets visitors' needs across the different intents that they come with. And another way to look at this is if you break up the traffic that come to your website into different buckets, you're going to see that you have a portion that come with the intention to convert. And obviously, you're going to go after them and do everything that you can, making sure that you have the offers available to them so that they can convert. But probably you're not going to be successful in converting the people that came to seek support. So going after them, inundating them with offers is not going to be successful. So you need to find other goals for all these other category of visitors. And I think that many people are surprised to find that not so many of the people that come to the website come with the intention to really convert. And then the question really becomes, why did they come to you and what can we do for them? And I know when talking to people and meeting our customers that if I ask them, what are you, if you look at these 100% of your visitors, what sort of categories do they come in? What is it that they're trying to accomplish on your website? Many times I really do get the sincere answer that we don't really know. I mean, they have ideas about the main conversion points and what we want them to do, but what they wanted to do is usually a different topic altogether. So I think that one way of tackling this of not knowing is simply asking your customers. Surveys have sort of gotten a bad rap, but there are very, very good tools out today that's not ruining the customer experiences, that just shows up in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and nudges you, or nudges your visitors, that is, to tell you a little bit about what they came to do, and most importantly, were they successful in doing what they came to do? There are different ways of getting this data, but I think that if you want to learn a little bit more about visitor intent, run a survey and ask strong questions that you can drive action from. And here also, I think it's interesting to look at the people that say they weren't successful. And if you get an answer that is anywhere amongst the lines of what we're seeing on the screen right now, that the people that came to buy, out of those folks, 35% said that they weren't successful. Well, then you have a pretty good idea of what you need to go back and focus on in your next sprint. But many times you are going to see that people are coming to you for all these different reasons. And if you come to seek support, for example, what is a successful outcome online for seeking support? Have you figured that out? Are you measuring that in a good way? Because otherwise, it's very easy to forget about the complete value of your digital channel if you only focus on your micro or your macro conversions. So wrapping up, and stating the case of really the upside of being agile and executing on a lot of ideas, I think there are three main components here that are very, very important. The first one is that you really do reduce waste by failing quickly and often. And I think that this is a wonderful attribute because you're not going to pour in money to stuff that is not going to pay back. You're going to learn very quickly from real customers that this change is not making their life easier. Well, we should try something else. So you're gonna stop a lot of ideas that may have sounded good, but that really didn't make a real impact on your visitor. Secondarily, I think you're really going to be empowered to discover stuff that you could never anticipate, the sort of unknown unknowns. And a lot of times when you run an experiment, you may get a result that's very different from the stuff that you expected. And that could be good because you will discover segments or visitor behavior or things about your visitors that you just didn't know and that probably you couldn't have anticipated on your own. So that's a huge upside, I think, of really being out there closer to your customers and your visitors when gathering ideas and coming up with hypotheses. And last but certainly not least, as both Donna and I have been stressing today, it really lets your customers be the ultimate judge of the experience that they want. And I think that that's very, very powerful when it comes to meeting the consumers of today and tomorrow. So with that, I think that I'm going to hand over to Tom for the Q&A session, right?
I think that's right, Joachim. If you'll pass the baton over to me, I will advance to that next slide. And it is time for our audience to be the stars of the show. This is a great presentation from Donna and Joachim, and I'm really looking forward to the questions from the audience. If you have a question, please go to the Q&A tab now, type it in, and send it to our host or to the panelists so we can get that in queue. Okay, our first question comes from Mary Edwards, and it's a really good one. Thank you for asking this, Mary. Even though we're marketers and we're thinking in marketing terms, sometimes we forget about our audience. She says, you're using terms like sprint and agile, but do you think most marketers are familiar with these terms? So I would like to invite you guys to give us a little definition of those two terms. Donna or Joachim, who wants to take that?
So I can get us started on that one. I mean, there are some formal methodologies around the concept of agility, but if we look at just the pure definition of agility, it's the ability to think and draw conclusions quickly, right? It's being nimble. And so at the very, if you're only going to sort of dip a toe into agile marketing per se, it's really, number one, you in and of yourself adopting the mentality that we can't strive for perfection and that we have to get ourselves in a stance where we're willing to introduce a lot of different things to market based on the customer's needs and pay attention to them and react to what's happening with that very quickly. It's that whole power of being able to move quickly and easily. And it's, a lot of you said that your organization is simply not organized. The hierarchical structure or the silos that you're all in don't lend themselves to you being able to act in an agile way. And, it really starts with one. I can tell you that I've been in a lot of different organizational situations with different sizes of teams. And really, if one person sort of can adopt that sort of mentality, let alone the formal sort of methodology of agile marketing, you can sort of be a catalyst for that throughout your organization. Joachim, from a practitioner's view, do you want to get more into the nitty-gritty on that one?
Yeah, well, I think I agree with Mary Edwards that maybe sprint and agile are not the best terms because a lot of marketers are probably not familiar with them. I think that we are most likely going to see competing terms popping up that may be more in line, if you will. A sprint will really be the sort of period in which you execute the stuff that you have decided is the problem that you're working on. So it's really the production period in which you come up with what you're going to do and then make sure you get it done. And I think that if you're looking at agile marketing today, anywhere between a week and 3 months is maybe reasonable to have as a sprint time. And I think that the shorter you can get that, like I said, the better. Agile, I think it's becoming more and more common as a term to speak about this type of sort of experimental marketing, or and there are several lean marketing or real-time marketing. We'll see who comes out as the winner eventually. But I'm sure there will be terms that will be widely known fairly shortly.
The other thing that I would mention is anytime, we as marketers are trying to introduce a concept, part of our role is to educate across the organization. So, making sure that you are the one who is providing a definition and gaining some alignment around what that means to your organization, because it's going to be a little bit different.
I really appreciate all the detail on that. And I will just add this about agility. I think you two probably are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, but I think agility also requires the technology to move faster, to make quicker decisions, to analyze what's in front of you with the speed of light, and to take advantage of it. But terrific answers. Thank you, and thank you to Mary Edwards for asking that question. Our next question comes from Danielle Sensei, and it's a visual question, so I'm going to go back to slide 45. Which is what she said that it refers to. I noticed that slide 45 on website visitor intent breaks out check prices into a separate bucket from the general research. Why is that? I'm not sure she had the right slide here.
I think that you want to move a little further in the presentation, Tom.
Yeah, let's take another look.
I think we should go still a bit further.
Okay.
You're getting closer.
I remember this game.
This is my favorite slide.
Here we are. Okay.
Here we are. So, yeah, check prices is little micro conversions, they're called.
It depends a little bit on what business you're in. If you're looking at our own business, somebody that is conducting research, that usually means downloading a white paper or research report on our website. And that is quite different for somebody that's interested in knowing how much is this going to cost me if I buy the software from Episerver. If you are an e-commerce type of business, maybe conducting research and checking pricing is more similar. It's really the same thing. So I think it depends a little bit on what business that you are in, as the short answer. I think that the more important question is that, or conclusion here is that you really find the categories that would be good to describe the visitor intent of the people that you deal with on your website, and those might look quite different from what I have here in this example.
Good answer. Yeah, I know when I shop personally, I do all the research and then I find out what the best price is. So that's, I think, the way a lot of people think. Let's see if we can get back to where we were. There we are. And our next question comes from, and I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly, Debashish Das. And it's, how does one go about evaluating what percent of prospect traffic, at least what we think are prospects, come with a true intent to purchase?
I think there are two ways of doing that. The first one is to ask them measurements of finding out buying signals. In your analytics, you probably have stuff that tells you that they may be interested in buying. If you look at our own website, I would say that people that go in and read about how can I get a demo, how does our software work, well, they have a specific interest in our software, whereas people that only came to read about some very high level thought leadership probably did not come with that type of intention. And I think that if you're in a sort of a B2C environment, you can sort of go after the same cues to get an idea about, okay, what type of content and what type of activity does an individual have on your website? Is he or she presumably looking to buy something or not. And if you weigh those two together, asking them in a more qualitative fashion with your analytics data and how they behave on your site, you're probably going to have a fairly good idea of the amount of people that actually came with that intention.
Good answer, Donna. Any thoughts on that one?
I don't have much more. Joachim was pretty thorough on that one.
Okay, great. Well, let's just move on to our next question then. Apart from the challenges mentioned, what is the biggest obstacle to getting started with Agile marketing and staying Agile? That's a great question.
Donna, do you want to start or should I take it away?
I mean, I would just reiterate, there's all different levels of adopting an agile sort of mentality. Lots of formality around it if you want to get into the nitty gritty. But at the end of the day, it's, subscribing to that sort of thinking on your own and being a champion for that within the organization. I always found that part of my role as a marketer within an organization was to champion and to educate. And I found that once folks understood that and understood how doing that helps move the needle with your customers, that ultimately it's not hard to get folks onto that team. Joachim?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, it is nice to show early progress. So if you're like most businesses, you probably have stuff that, excuse me, could be improved by making experiments and by changing the way that the experience is for your customers. So I would start with a sort of low-hanging fruit and see if you can prove to your organization that, hey, if we go about doing this thing, I can actually show differences in the metrics that we do care about. Then I think that the challenge to really become agile is becoming agile for real in a way. There's so many people talking about being agile as a sort of a buzzword and using it in presentations and really sticking with it and being agile in all the processes and giving up ownership as we saw a little bit here and really empowering the people that work for you to be trying out ideas continuously is a little bit uncomfortable for many organizations. So once you have your early gains, I think that you really need to find out, can we be consistent and run this over a longer period of time? And I think that in the survey that Tom ran here, or the poll, I should say, it became also clear that people have tried, they've dipped their toes into this, but they haven't really wrapped their entire head around moving forward on this on a sort of consistent basis.
Good answer. Let's see. Next question. What would the typical goals be for a visitor who did not come to convert, and how do you suggest going about tracking those?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And I think it will depend on the business that you're in, but I think that typical things would be stuff like people downloading your product brochure, people watching a video, people that came and viewed certain pages that were important to you. You want to keep track of those things because they're really adding value to your business. And I think that's very easy to forget, that you like when somebody picks up a brochure at the stand at an event, but it's probably a much more valuable event to your business when somebody downloads a brochure online. So you want to keep track of that. And I would say you also want to assign some sort of numerical values on these events. What is it worth to us as a business when somebody's doing this? So that we're not only capturing the value when we sell something or we have a macro conversion. And I think that the easiest way to do that is to use your analytics software and to use events in your analytics software, whether that being Google Analytics or somewhere else, to really be very, very clear on what these things are. And if we roll back to the example that I had earlier, like seeking support, I think that a typical goal for seeking support would be task completion for solving this online without having to pick up the phone and call a rep and get it settled another way, because we know that people don't like to do that. So you have to drill down to the objective for the people in each category and find out what should be the success criteria here. What is the completion, the task completed that we want people to do?
Great thoughts. Donna, anything to add there?
The only thing I would add is we like to talk a lot about the either the art of the relationship or selling without selling. And this really lends itself to deriving your go-to-market strategy from the customer's point of view, because obviously at the end of the day, our business objective is to get those folks to convert. But when we start to traverse the path, we go through the exercise of traversing the path from the customer's point of view, we inherently start to understand what it is the customer is going to be trying to get at, and when and where and in what format. And when we do that, we start to see additional engagements that occur prior to a conversion or a transaction. And we're able to put some weight on those and measure, because what we're doing is cutting the noise for the customer. We're clearing a path to help them in their decision-making process. So we have to understand what the customer needs and what our propensity is as a brand to provide that information in digestible bits that is personalized to that customer. And when you start to do that, you start to have a clearer view of all of those instances versus maybe the one or two that you had set up as a business objective. And then you can start to weight those activities and understanding how you're helping to build the confidence of that purchaser, or winning them over from the competition over time.
Great thoughts. I love all these answers that we're getting here. And we're coming up to our final question. Folks, we do have time for a couple of questions. If you have one on your mind, go to your Q&A tab and ask it quickly, and I think we can sneak it in at the bottom of the show here. But our next question in line are, what are some experiments you've put into place at Episerver that generated really interesting results? What are some of the experiments that you have going that are generating interesting results?
That's a good question. I think that the first one is that words really matter. Small words matter. If we look at our audience, and I use a word like win versus succeed, there's always a big difference in that people are much more likely to do what we want them to do if we use win instead of succeed. It's one of those things that we've seen a lot. And you're going to find that for a lot of the sort of terms that you think means the same things, but some of them trigger action and others don't. And it's going to differ a little depending on your audience. Secondarily, I would say that anytime we sort of use IKEA as having done something, that is an extremely strong trigger to our audience. I remember that we had this report on e-commerce that IKEA had downloaded, and we told the audience that, okay, this report has been downloaded by IKEA and a bunch of other companies, but IKEA is really the trigger for a lot of the audience that we have. If IKEA has done something, that is considered trustworthy material. On a slightly bigger scale, I think that one of the most interesting things that I've seen is we are, as a company, very, very interested in a sort of personalization of content and targeting content to specific visitor groups and that are might be in different geographical places or just have done different stuff on your website. And we ran this stuff in Australia some time ago that was a campaign for digital leaders. And we tried personalizing the sort of landing page experience that the visitor had, depending on where in the country that they were. And what we found out is that it is good personalizing the experience based on where the visitor is, but you can't get too intimate. If you tell them, hey, we're looking for digital leaders in this specific town where they happen to be, then it becomes too intimate and they actually don't like that type of personalization and they don't convert. But if you make it a little bit broader and you say, hey, we're looking for digital leaders in Queensland, Australia, which is the similar of a US state, well, then we're being very successful with that personalization. It feels relevant and it doesn't feel creepy. And I think that you're going to see that type of attitude is going to be a little bit different in different countries and different regions. How personal can you get without freaking people out and being relevant? And in Australia, it's sort of on the state level, which I found very interesting.
That is really interesting. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of our program. I really want to thank Donna Pale and Joachim Holmquist for their participation today. This has been a terrific presentation presented by Episerver, our sponsor for today's event, and produced by CMSWire. In addition to Donna and Joachim, I want to thank our director, Candace Quee, producer John Lewis, audio Anton Asen, our CEO, Bryce Dunwoody, who's in our audience today. For Simpler Media Group and CMSWire, I'm Tom Murphy, inviting you to visit cmswire.com, sign up for our future webinars, and join us for a future event. Thank you for being with us today and such a great audience. We'll see you next time.